Chapter 2. Selecting Methodology and Evidence-Based Practices. When considering a student's educational needs, selecting methodology or educational practices that are evidence-based help the teacher select programs or practices suited to the skills that need to be taught, the population of students you are teaching, and the best setting to teach those skills. In the decision-making process, selecting appropriate evidence-based practices to use in instruction is next in implementing the IEP. The next step in the process is to select the appropriate evidence-based practice or methodology to teach Simone this skill. Considering the thread discovered for Simone, we know Simone needs to work on decoding multisyllabic words in order to make progress in her reading skills. What curriculum is best suited to fill this need? Where might her teacher find an appropriate methodology to teach phonics? Let's start with a definition. What are evidence-based practices? Skills, techniques, and strategies that have been proven to work through the strongest research studies. This occurs when studies show a significant or positive effect on student outcomes. Multiple high-quality studies have been conducted following acceptable protocols, and they've been reviewed by a reputable organization, such as What Works Clearinghouse, IRIS, or other government agencies. In other words, these methodologies can be trusted to work with students. To find an evidence-based practice for your students, first identify the need you want to address, and second, locate the evidence-based practice proven to be effective for this group of students in the area. For example, one website you might use is What Works Clearinghouse. The website link is provided on the resources document you may download. In the next video segment, Desiree tells us where she finds appropriate evidence-based practices to use in instruction.
For finding evidence-based practices for my student population, I have many resources that I use. I use the state website quite a bit. I go to the Council for Exceptional Children quite a bit as well. I'm in a lot of email communication with other members. Use a lot of books from college classes. We have a lot of staff professional development and workshops, and I'm very specific and targeted in which workshops that I will attend. For example, I'm going to a trauma-based workshop next month.
Let's take a closer look at one of the resources. What Works Clearinghouse's Find What Works resource allows users to identify interventions, programs, policies, and practices that have been shown to have a positive impact on student outcomes. The link indicated on this slide is a video tutorial of how to find what evidence-based practice work, sort and filter your search results, and dig deeper into specific interventions and studies. This is what the web page looked like when I searched for an intervention to help Simone. First, I selected the topics literacy, children and youth with disabilities, and K-12. Next, I filtered for grade, public school, small group setting, and the skills Simone needs to improve. Alphabetics is another name for phonics instruction on this slide. Next, I added reading achievement to the filter. On the web page, these 4 programs or strategies are listed. Note, the Read 180 program was not studied for youth with disabilities. Next, I checked each one to compare these practices. When viewing Compare Evidence-Based Interventions, we can find out of the 4 interventions we compared for Simone, peer-assisted learning strategies is the best fit for her skill deficit. Simone needs help learning to decode multisyllabic words. Peer-assisted learning strategies is a practice that can be delivered in a small group setting. It is designed for students in Simone's grade 6, and the plus indicates this practice had potentially positive effects on alphabetics, the phonics skills used in decoding. The other programs did not show any effects on alphabetics according to What Works Clearinghouse's research. A potentially positive ranking, 1+ mark, means the intervention had a positive effect on outcomes with no overriding contrary evidence. None of the programs we compared had 2+ marks, which would indicate positive effects were found and as stronger evidence the program was effective for the population we filtered for, 6th grade special ed students. Positive effects is an indicator that multiple studies on the practice have been conducted, while potentially positive rankings like peer-assisted learning strategies in this example means at least one study has been conducted showing it worked for this population. Please note, this is not an exhaustive list of all programs, but one example of a possible evidence-based practice. The What Works Clearinghouse also has resource practice guides to help teachers make informed decisions about instruction. The practice guide on this slide has 5 commonly used literacy intervention practices for middle school students and summarizes the evidence of their effectiveness. Let's look at some of the other places you can find evidence-based practices in addition to What Works Clearinghouse. These are only a few of the websites that review evidence-based practices and programs. For a more comprehensive list, please refer to the resource document posted with the module. If you teach students with low incidence disabilities and need help selecting methodologies for this population, evidence-based practices such as discrete trial training are thoroughly covered in Autism Internet modules. Okay, now that we've selected the right evidence-based methodology for Simone, what other considerations are there? What about grade level standards?
I typically look at the Common Core standards for every instructional decision that I make. I may look at several different levels of the Common Core standards, but they always drive the instruction. If a student is really far behind, I may look at their instructional level as well as their actual grade level and try and find a way to bridge that gap. And I use the standards as a stepping stone, kind of a ladder to get me where they need to be.
Teachers need to know what the grade level content standards are and what the point of focus is, considering the entry level of the student's baseline skills. Although it is important to write IEP goals using actual grade level standards, lessons should be taught at the student's instructional level or point of need. The teacher's aim is to enable the student to get closer to grade level than they are currently performing. This module section, we have discussed using grade level standards to drive instructional decisions and identified an appropriate evidence-based methodology for phonics instruction using the What Works Clearinghouse.